It is not strength that overcomes darkness, but light. Why do we celebrate Christmas on December 25th? Well, there's two main hypotheses. The first hypothesis is the history of religions hypothesis. This hypothesis says that December 25th was the Roman winter solstice, not the 21st like today, but the 25th, and the birth of Sol Invictus, the sun god. So this theory claims that Christianity supplanted this pagan celebration and decided to put Christmas on top of, well, the worship of the sun god. The second hypothesis is the calculation hypothesis. This hypothesis says that it was easier to calculate the Annunciation to Mary. The Annunciation is when the angel Gabriel comes and tells Mary that she's going to be pregnant, through Mary's cousin Elizabeth and her husband Zechariah on March 25th. Now, what's the relationship between December 25th and March 25th? Well, it's exactly 9 months later. Now, whichever hypothesis you go with, both of them have at least one thing in common, and that is that they both fall on what was the ancient Roman winter solstice. And the winter solstice is the darkest day of the year. Into this darkest day of the year, Jesus says, "I am the light of the world." Now, we're in a long 18-month experiment, a series of series, looking at Jesus' most famous teaching, the Sermon on the Mount. And in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, "You are the light of the world." Now, he had said, "I am the light of the world," but here in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, "You are the light of the world. Let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father." Now, in this series of series, we are in the series of Christmas that we're calling Illumination, because Jesus says, "You are the light of the world." It's basically like a history, biography, evangelism series. And we're using the book by Elaine Heath called The Mystic Way of Evangelism. Sort of trying to redefine evangelism for our day and age. And here's how we're redefining evangelism. True evangelism guides us all to fully live God's reign as Jesus did. True evangelism, not the evangelism that's coercive or manipulative or shaming or guilt-inducing, but true evangelism. It guides us all to fully live God's reign as Jesus did. Now today, because we're celebrating the birth of Jesus, I want to ask the question and answer it. What does the birth of Jesus, the incarnation, illuminate? In the book of 1 Timothy, this is the first letter written to Timothy, traditionally attributed to Paul, the first missionary of the church, but scholars disagree about whether he wrote it or not. But in the book of 1 Timothy, we read this: "Without question, this is the great mystery of our faith. Christ was revealed in a human body and vindicated by the Spirit. He was seen by angels and announced to the nations. He was believed in throughout the world and taken to heaven in glory." Why was Christ revealed in a human body? What did this body illuminate? Or you could say, why did God become a human? I am the light of the world. God came in the form of a human to illuminate the way in darkness. Now, darkness isn't always bad. I mean, think about when you're trying to go to sleep. You want it to be dark. Like most of us don't want light 24 hours a day. But in this sense of darkness, to illuminate the way through darkness, darkness is kind of it's the brokenness, the woundedness, the the markedness, the sinfulness, the darkness of the world. And Jesus came to illuminate the path of repair through this darkness. How did God illuminate this way? How did God illuminate this darkness? How did God fix the things that broken and need repair and wounded? How did God do that? Well, there's one word to that answer. It's Jesus. Well, let's ask the immediate question that follows on the heels of that one-word answer. How did Jesus fix things? How did Jesus illuminate things? And he did so through his birth and his life, through his death, and through his resurrection. Let's start first with his birth, because that's what we're here to celebrate today, the birth of Jesus. You could summarize the light or the illumination in this way. The divine put on flesh so that flesh might put on the divine. The old way of saying this was that the Son of God became a son of men so that sons of men might become sons of God. There's sort of a poeticness in that, although in today's way of using language, it's very gender exclusive. So you could rework it to say that the Son of God became a human so that humans might become sons and daughters and children of God. Or you could say the character of God took on the character of flesh so that flesh might take on the character of God. Or you might just say divine put on flesh so that flesh could put on the divine. Now, we could have a full stop here. We could say, how does God fix things in Jesus' birth? Like, we could just say, that's enough for the divine and the human to touch. That's enough. That's light enough. That's illumination enough. This is an amazing miracle that the divine didn't stay away from the messiness of this embodied experience, but came rather to bring light to it, to redeem it, to heal it. Or you could say, it is not strength that overcomes darkness, but light. Okay, that's the second time I've used that quote without telling you where it came from. I'm trying not to geek out too much on you, but that's Celebrimbor from The Lord of the Rings and the new show, The Rings of Power. And he's talking to Galadriel, one of the key elves who ends up, well, inheriting one of the rings and being sort of one of the leaders in The Lord of the Rings. And I could go on, but that's not what we're really here for. I was just watching it recently, and when he said this to her, it hit me how powerful of a statement that is in light of the way that the divine comes in Jesus and lights the way through darkness. It's not through power, it's through a baby. It's through the light of a baby, the light of the incarnation, that darkness is overcome. Now, in Eastern Christianity, the incarnation is the real miracle. The incarnation, when Jesus is born, when God becomes human, that's the amazing thing. The divine touches the human. The crucifixion and the resurrection, those things, while important, are just sort of the natural outcome of when the divine touches the human. In this way, it could be said that Christmas is more important theologically than Easter. Did you catch that? Christmas is more important theologically than Easter. You don't have any Easter if you don't first have Christmas. You don't have any crucifixion and resurrection if you don't first have God coming in the form of a baby in the flesh. So let's take a stop here just for a moment and give you a chance to catch your breath, to think and give us some feedback. Talk to a neighbor, put it in the chat. Here's a question for you. What's a bigger celebration for you? Christmas or Easter? Let's talk about it.